If you heard Apple's announcement recently or looked on their website, the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, they have something called log recording for video. This has nothing to do whether it's HD or 4K or anything like that. This is how it records. So if you're familiar with photography, you've got JPEG and RAW gives you a lot more control later with adjusting the exposure. So if you were to do that with video, you can shoot RAW on some cameras, but it uses up an awful lot of data. So there's something called log, which stands for logarithmic, and kind of think of it as meeting it halfway, where you can make adjustments more so than if you record it just linearly, which is what you normally do. We don't need to go into the maths of linear and log here and logarithmic, but just to know that it gives you more control over the exposure when you actually do the filming. So the thing you do need to do is film it in ProRes. That's the higher resolution that it has, and you do need to switch it on. By default, it's switched on to HDR, high dynamic range. There's SDR for standard dynamic range, and there's log. And we're just going to take a look here. So one of the things I'm going to do is just go into the settings. I'm going to scroll down to camera. So if I go into formats and I scroll down, you'll see in the video capture, I've got Apple ProRes switched on, and it's got ProRes encoding, which is HDR. Tap there and you'll see you've got an option for log. Now log, when you film it, actually gives you a very flat image, almost looking washed out, very grey. But actually it's recording more information that you can then pull back later using Final Cut Pro for the iPad, iMovie as well. So it says, I've not actually tried it on iMovie, but you can also make adjustments in Resolve, DaVinci Resolve, and also in Premiere Pro as well. So let's just go outside and just take a look at something so you can see what it looks like when I actually record. So there's a nice rosebud here, and you can see nice colors in it. So it's a bit windy and it's blowing around, but it looks nice. Now, in the top left-hand corner, you'll see it's got ProRes and log, and it's crossed out. If I tap on that, you'll see it changes, very, very washed out. But let me just record it here, and then let me just hold it still for a bit so you can see it better there. There we go. That's what it looks like. So as you can see, washed out, but don't worry about that. You're going to be able to change that later. So I'm going to stop it here. I will then put it into Final Cut Pro on my iPad, and you'll see what the difference is. So I'm back here and I've got it into Final Cut Pro. It's synced across from my iPhone, which is great. If you're using iCloud, that's a fantastic thing to do. And you can see I've got it here, and you can see it's got all the color and everything. Let me just show you what it does without that on there and how you actually apply it if it's not there. So Final Cut Pro for iPad actually did this automatically. It recognized that it was in log, and it recognized that it was Apple as well. Let me just switch it off. So I've gone into the inspect button down in the bottom left-hand corner. It's got log processing. I'm just going to switch that to none. And you can see it now looks washed out, which is what we saw when we had it actually on the phone. So I can now choose to switch it back on. There we go, it's switched back on, and that's what it looks like. You'll notice it's got others here for Canon, Nikon, Sony, and so on. And they all give different looks, basically. So if I was to choose the Canon one, you can see it all looks a bit different. It's not actually changing, actually, there, that label. So let's keep it there. And you can see, I've got it, sorry, it was blowing around a bit, but that's what it does. So now, if I want to change the colors of it, because I want to do a bit more in the way of grading, what I can do is on the top left, you've got your sort of effects and transitions. I go into effects. Hang on a second. I should have put that into my timeline. Let's just do that. Let's just insert that. So that's in there. And let's just move the playhead along. So I go back to the effects in the top right. Effects. I go to color adjustments. I can tap and drag that on top of it. I've now got, if I now have my inspect panel still open, if it's not, just press inspect down at the bottom. And on the top here on these tabs, I just go to these effects here. There's color adjustments, and now I can do all sorts of things. Change the exposure, the contrast, the brightness, saturation, and so on. All sorts of things that you can actually take more control of if you shoot in log. So if you're the sort of person that wants to make these adjustments, maybe you're interested in making a film and you want to have more control and make your shots match, then log might be the way to go. So at the moment, it's only available on the iPhone 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. I'm sure it'll be in future versions of them. But if you've got a camera that has this, so many mirrorless cameras now actually have this as well. So you might start getting curious. The nice thing about log is each camera or camera brand can be a bit different in what they call their color science. By shooting in log, you've got a better chance of making them sort of match up because you've got more control over the color. Might not match exactly, but it could be close. So as you can see, this is quite helpful here. So if you feel that this might be useful when you're editing and in post-production, then take a look at it. If you do like this, please do like, share and subscribe and come back for more.